go out, and not a great start from Sean Trainer there from the outside of the front row. But having said that, he has got the leap off the line and is going to lead, I think, into the first corner. Yes, he does. So Sean Trainer, despite not an initially good getaway, has the advantage over Carl Johnston. It looked like Adam Lockwood was up to third position there on the way into Richie's as well. So we'll keep an eye on that and see which car, the Mark II or the Mark III, this favours. Well, certainly it's Mark III's in the first 4 places at the moment. Lockwood is third, Stratton is fourth, Dan Sylvester is fifth, and it looks pretty horrible out there now, doesn't it, in these wet conditions. Here they come then down towards Palmer, and it is Sean Trainer carrying a fair amount of speed into the corner, but he gets around Palmer. Slightly sideways is Carl Johnston. Lockwood is third. Dan Sylvester is fourth. Graham Mailings is off the road. Yes, that's not in his plan, I don't think. As more cars get started, there's a lot more spray now than what we saw in the previous race. So the cars make their way down. So Sylvester's back to fourth, is he? Because Neil Stratton has lost a number of positions as well, I think, on the last corner or so. This will probably be no more than 6 laps, if that. Then for third, Adam Lockwood is under pressure from Dan Sylvester. Who's that up next? Is that Andrew Ruthven? Yeah, Andy Ruthven there. And Ben Rowe. So they're up next. Rowe gets sideways. This is the corner, yeah, that has been tricky in the previous race as well. And there's a huge amount of opposite lock going on there. That is a corner that just keeps on going, but you want to get the power on because you've got to accelerate to the next corner. It's in the dry, you get full throttle as quickly as possible, but in this wet, perhaps that is less advisable. Christopher Allison there recovering from a spin in the number 37 car. So that's the third place man, Adam Lockwood, just heading through. He's not going to be third for much longer though, because Dan Sylvester goes around the outside into Brundle and secures the move. So Dan Sylvester gets back into his grid position of third. Adam Lockwood down to fourth, and fifth at the moment is Ben Rowe now, isn't it, I think? As Neil Stratton has dropped back, he's lost a couple of positions after being fourth initially. Outside the top 6 now, I think. There's Sylvester, number 21 in the first of the MR2s, the Rogue Motorsport car. Out of the left-hander at Murray as they come. There's Stratton, there's Tim Heron. Good weather for herons. And then Graham Mailings coming through. Somebody just behind them spun and is just rejoining. But for Trainer, he was hoping for some rain, was he not, earlier? And that first lap has gone well. 1.2 seconds up the road from Cole Johnston. Trainer much more experience, of course, in this championship. Multiple champion is Sean Trainer. Oh, and someone's had a big loop in the background. Ruthven, I think Andy Ruthven, the ex-mini race, has gone round, but quickly got it pointing back in the right direction again. I'm not sure if it was luck or judgment how it ended the spin. There is Tim Heron and Graham Mailings. And Ruthven's got to be careful again not to have another loop. But that time, I think he did okay. Again, Ben Rowe, another massively experienced driver in the category, trying to move forward. He's going after Adam Lockwood, is Ben Rowe. And Sylvester's caught Johnston, who's going off the road potentially with a big slide. So Sylvester now, is that more that Johnston's had a problem? I think it is. He was only a second behind trying to start that, but there's a lot more than that now. But for Johnston, he is losing more positions potentially at the next corner. Ben Rowe and Adam Lockwood as well. What were we saying at the beginning of the race about Cole Johnston can't afford any more bad results with those 2 drop scores coming from non-starts at the last meeting? Yeah, well, we'll see if he can come back here. The instructor, race and rally instructor, and stunt driving instructor as well. But he is slowing now, isn't he? I think possibly it's a problem with the car rather than anything else, I'm afraid. So it could be Carl Johnston, who could ill afford a non-finish or a poor result. Looks like he's going to get one. So it's Sean Trainer leading. It's Dan Sylvester second, but Ben Rowe up to third. Trainer had a huge moment as he braked under the bridge. I think he's okay. But I guess there's been a lot of moments, hasn't there, in these last couple of races in these conditions. Yeah, Trainer's fine. But that was a sketchy
sketchy moment. Doesn't need to push on so hard now, perhaps, with that big lead. Depending on what he thinks the pace of these Mark 2s can do in these conditions. Now they've got to the front of the pack, or the front of the pack chasing pack.
Yeah, absolutely right. Does he see them as a threat or not? Lockwood there in 4th on his own at the moment. Neil Stratton back up to 5th, with dramas for a couple of cars ahead of him on this lap, being Cole Johnston and Andy Ruthven. So up to Murray's comes this fight for 2nd between the 2 leaders in the class. Briefly on board with Dan Sylvester as he comes out of the Murray's and up along the start and finish straight. Benroe just behind him and to his left in the spray. And get back then to Lockwood with his headlamps on, of course, in 4th place. Of course, the Mark 2s don't have their pop-up headlamps on.
Similar thing to the previous race. We're about half a minute just under off the pace of race 1. Huge slides for both Sylvester and Rowe through Ritchie's corner. They were about a second or so slower than Train. Well, Sylvester was. Ben Rowe was a very similar pace to Train on that lap. So Ben Rowe, who hasn't had huge amounts of success this season in the MR2 Championship, is looking for a good run here. He's had a best result of 6th before today. He was 4th. His best result of the season was earlier this afternoon, in fact. But he's in 3rd here, and a class win as well on the card if he can get past Dan Sylvester ahead of him.
It's been a championship contender in the past, of course, as we go on board now with Maxine Nichols, number 17, in 16th position. She's battling with these tricky conditions. See, perhaps the windscreen a little bit misted up there as well. There's Andy Ruthven with Graham Mailings, very deep diving into the corner from Ruthven. The man from Meriden, the village right in the centre of England. And then behind him it's Spear Aldridge and Gavin Aldworth. Billy Boggs is someone who was up there in race 1, but he's down in 13th in race 2, so whether he's had a moment or just not fancying these conditions, I'm not quite sure.
That's Graham Mailings, who's having a fractionally better race than earlier in 7th. Not sure who wasn't sideways there. Everybody was crossed up, particularly that man there, Gavin Aldworth, in 15, who is there in what is 10th position. And again, it's misting up a little bit perhaps in the cockpit of that car for Gavin in P10, chasing Veer Aldridge just ahead. And Graham Mailings has lost out, has he, to Andrew Ruthven, who had to spin, of course, a lap or so ago up at Ritchie's. So Graham Mailings has dropped in behind on what has been a trying weekend here for the driver who won at Brands Hatch a couple of months ago. There in 71, Graham Mailings.
So out of the bomber hole towards Coram they go. The fight for 7th position as things stand. Mailings in the G&T Motorsport car. Sean Traynor can tell you already through to complete his 3rd lap with 8.5 minutes of the race having gone by. That time he was within 200ths of his best lap at 2:46.79, but Dan Sylvester did a 2:46.37. So he now has the fastest lap of the race. Dan Sylvester in 2nd position. He was over 2 seconds faster than Ben Rowe on that lap. So he's put some daylight between himself and his pursuer, has Dan Sylvester. I guess Ben Rowe, we just need to be mindful of Adam Lockwood, although Lockwood was even slower than Rowe on the previous lap.
Yeah, so Sylvester, there he is, the fastest man in the on the grid. Up a gear towards Palmer, the long left-hander. What type of line is he using here? Pretty wide one. Trying to find the grip out the outside. Huge amounts of opposite lock. And then power on past Tyrrell's. There's the restaurant on the right-hand side of the circuit. Passes that, then onto the brakes using the middle of the circuit, trying to keep off the traditional racing line where it tends to be less grippy. Don't want to lock up here. And then you're out of the hairpin he goes. Kicks up the spray. He's 4 seconds behind the leader, Sean Traynor, with a couple or 3 laps to go. 5 minutes on the clock if we run to 15 minutes, and there, even on the external cameras, you can see Sylvester getting opposite lock, trying to control it. This is at Oggies, this is where it's tricky, particularly tricky, like I say, in the dry. There you get on the throttle, hard as early as possible, but in the wet, it's a very different story. And then through Williams up the curb, that kicks the back out again, but he controls it and he continues to run. In P2, trying to chase Trainer, the leader. There's Trainer just ahead in 27, 4 seconds or so in front.
Yep, as they head along Bentley Straight into Brundle and Nelson then for the 4th time in this race in these really appalling conditions that we have now at Snetterton on this 300 circuit. I guess the drivers probably knew this was coming. They've been keeping an eye, no doubt, on their weather apps. So they've had a dry race and they've had a wet race, which is good, I suppose, to have different conditions throughout the day, different challenges for the drivers. I'm sure they all would necessarily always welcome that. But Sylvester there in second.
Especially for those who now got to pack up.
Yes.
After this that's where it becomes particularly horrible. Michael
Glynn's been off as well by the looks of it, but he's back on the circuit in the number 87 car. He's running in 20th position. Lockwood and Stratton for 4th and 5th have got themselves together now. The gap between these two was 2.2 seconds a lap ago. It's come right down.
Meanwhile, up front, Trainers reclaimed the fastest lap at 2:45.9. But as you say, for 4th, Neil Stratton has been catching Adam Lockwood, the championship leader, who's yet to win a race, but on net scores is the championship leader, but quite a bit faster behind is Stratton. Lockwood did a PB, but nowhere near as quick as the chasing car. Neil Stratton in 84, the man from Derbyshire. They're in what is 5th position. He started racing back in 2009 in the Toyota MR2 Mark 1 Championship. He's been racing in this championship since 2018. He was the runner-up in the Burkitt Relay back in 2018. And now he drives this car, which is prepared by VT Racing. VTR, as you can see there on the side of the car, chasing after Lockwood ahead in 11. The gap at the line was something like 0.6 of a second. Lockwood trying to pick up his pace. He's seeing the car behind is quicker. So he's seeing if he can replicate the speed shown by Neil Stratton. Huge amounts of spray being kicked up in the face of Stratton ahead. Was Lockwood a little bit slow through that previous corner, Ian? Is a challenge going to come here?
Looks like it might do. Pretty much nose telling, less than the car length between them. Different lines now being taken through our gears, but Lockwood remaining ahead. I think it was a bit slow actually for the yellow car of Stratton. Well, it's not too much further behind now as they head out of Williams and onto the Bentley Straight. Now making their way down to Brundle and Nelson. You can see ahead of them they've got Ben Rowe. It looks like they're almost side by side now as they head along the Bentley Straight. Nice wide section of circuit, as you can see. And Stratton all crossed up there as they went into the braking area for Brundle. And as a result of that, Lockwood is still ahead as they turn their way now through Nelson towards the bomb hole with 13.5 minutes of the race having gone by. Sean Trainer, we can see, is already arriving at Murray's. And these two still at it then, battling for 4th position, what will be second within the class. Over through Coram they come. Sean Trainer about to go on to his last lap. So it does look like we're going to get the full 15-minute distance for these cars. 11 and 84 then, Lockwood and Stratton still locked in combat as we watch Sean Trainer now head on to his final lap.
6 seconds clear of Sylvester, so he is going away. Meanwhile, for 4th, just looking out of the commentary box window, a challenge from Neil Stratton. Does it come off? Trainer's had a moment on the brakes into the hairpin, but he's caught it this time. No dramas there. So he continues to lead. 6 seconds clear then of Dan Sylvester in P2 and Ben Rowe in what is 3rd position still. And then the battle for 4th. That's where the change could come on this final lap of the Snetterton circuit. 3-mile layout, as we've heard from drivers, pretty much the longest circuit on the calendar for majority of championships, and therefore there's lots to learn, and therefore in the wet conditions there's a lot to figure out where the grip is. Some corners, perhaps the racing line is different to others. Here's that battle then. Lockwood has held on after a lap of challenges from Stratton. We look to find that battle then. Can Adam Lockwood keep him at bay for another half a lap? It's 11 Lockwood ahead.
Into Oggies then for the final time. Sean Trainer already onto the Bentley Straight. He's got less than half a lap to go. We've got 6 seconds in hand over Dan Sylvester at the beginning of the lap, who've got 4 seconds, nearly 5 seconds in hand over Ben Rowe. Back to this battle for 4th and 2nd in Class C, and it's still the same order in that it's Adam Lockwood ahead of Neil Stratton, but there's a lot of spray being kicked up. Meanwhile, Sean Trainer through Brundle and Nelson, he has gone. You can see just how wet the circuit has got now. It's been raining for, what, an hour or so, something like that. It's still pushing on, Sean Trainer. Through the bomb hole he goes now towards Coram for the final time, so he narrowly missed out on a win in the earlier race by 0.15 seconds on corrected times. It looks like he is going to get the win from Dan Sylvester on this occasion. He is through Morris for the final time. There's the fight for third, just going through Coram, but here is the checkered flag to bring an end to what's been a soggy last couple of races. Sean Trainer wins round 10 of the Toyota MR2 Championship, backed by Extinguishers by quite a convincing margin from Dan Sylvester in 2nd place.